right. I think I am live. I'll wait a few minutes to see if people come in and join me. I'm actually a minute late or so. Let me check my, I'm going to check my Facebook page. Let's see if this is showing, actually. Oh, okay. If you can hear me, I see one person in here. I don't know who you are, but if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up or let me know in the comments if you can hear okay. All right. Well, excuse me. All right. So I'll get started because a couple of people are in here. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Beth Phillips, and I thought today I would talk about how to teach, or not how to, but some of the resources that I used when my children were little and we were at the beginning of our homeschool journey. I put out a question I think a week and a half ago, just to try to address some concerns that people have, and teaching little ones to read was among them. So in the first live after that question, I covered, talked about portfolios and what to include in them and how to prepare them, and I gave some examples of what I submitted in the portfolios for the evaluations. So if you can look back at that on my page or on the YouTube channel. And I do want to encourage you to, if you're interested in these topics or have ideas for other topics that you might want some guidance on, I would encourage you to go to the YouTube channel. I always repost these, like I upload them to YouTube for anybody who's not on Facebook. But I think YouTube, so you should subscribe and click the notification button if you want to get notified when these go live, because I don't think Facebook really pushes out notifications on pages like this. So just do that if you're interested in learning when there are new videos or new topics that I might be addressing. And so anyway, today we're going to talk about some of the resources that I used when I had emergent readers and young new readers. First, though, I want to give you some perspective, especially if you're worried about this topic, if you're anxious about it at all. I want to compare the situation you have with having the ability to educate your children at home, whether it's temporarily until COVID clears up or you think you're going to stick with it. If you compare it to a classroom setting, there really, in my view, is no comparison. So if you think about classroom teachers, so they not only do you have a number of advantages over that model. The obvious one is that you have one-on-one instruction, or one with a couple of kids if you are educating, have a few students that you're homeschooling. That's a huge advantage. Number two, and that's whether you feel like you have time in your day to spend 30 minutes or an hour with each of your children. Even if you don't have that, you still have an advantage over a teacher who is trying to teach 25 first graders how to read or 25 kindergartners how to read. Another advantage is that you know your child best, so you can meet them where they are more successfully than a classroom teacher has the ability to. You have the flexibility of choosing a method that works for you. You can combine different resources. You can try one. If it doesn't work out, you can try another method, and you really do have the luxury of time. But you also have the flexibility, well within the law, to use any method. And if you have a reader that picks it up very naturally, you don't have to use a specific curriculum. Unlike in a school setting, if a child takes off and is way ahead of his or her class, they still have to kind of sit through the lessons. The teachers don't really have that luxury of flexibility to meet them where they are. So that's just a few advantages. The other thing I want you to keep in mind is that whether a teacher is experienced or not, they are restricted. So the first thing is new teachers, they have the, classroom experience from their internship or practical, before they graduate from college, but they're learning too. So that's a process. So you're not going to get a first-year teacher who knows the best method to teach reading to a group of kids. That's not realistic. But even veteran teachers, and I would say teachers in my age group, who went into teaching, learned how to teach a thing, they are restricted by the curriculum that they have to use. So in even their innate or experiential or expertise in teaching young children, young students how to read, a lot of times they can't follow that. They're very much restricted by the district curriculum. So hopefully that gives you some perspective on this new thing that you're undergoing. Pardon me. So when I first started homeschooling, my oldest was kindergarten age, and a person who I knew just gifted me. Her kids were all, I think, 6th grade and older, so they had already, learned how to read. So she gifted me a program called Alphaphonics. And I'm surprised, but they're still publishing it. It had a kind of a unique presentation because it was hand lettered and just progressive lessons through the letter sounds. But it just is sort of surprising to me. It was free though, so I was glad to get it, and it worked for her kids, so I was happy to have that. And then I think I reinforced, and there weren't any worksheets, so I would recommend that only because I used it and it was fine for my oldest daughter, and she liked having lessons, but I don't think she really needed that step by step. I remember her skipping lessons and really kind of blowing through this curriculum. And it wasn't as engaging for her younger brother, who is 11 months younger. And he was my reluctant reader. He really wanted to learn, but he was a perfectionist, and just I wasn't worried, but he was really self-conscious about not learning how to read as early as she did. I mean, she was reading just chapter books as a late kindergartner, early first grader. So he was put a lot of pressure on himself to also learn that skill. So it wasn't working for him. He wasn't as engaged with the presentation of it. So I had heard Susan Weisbauer. She runs the Well-Trained Mind, and she writes a history curriculum. I forget what that's called. Oh, Story of the World, which I loved. But I decided to try the writing curriculum, or the reading curriculum, that I think her mom wrote it. But Susan Weisbauer she was homeschooled herself. She homeschooled her own children. And she's a professor at William and Mary, or at least she was when I heard her speak. But so I decided to try her program, or her book, mostly because it was affordable. It's called The Ordinary Parent's Guide to Teaching Reading. And it literally gives you a script in, I don't know how many lessons, maybe 150 lessons, 160 lessons, that progresses. And it gives you the script. So you and it also tells you what to have prepared, whether it's index cards, or it gives you, it holds your hand through this learning how to read. And the nice thing about it is you can just look at the syllabus and decide where to start with. So maybe your child has mastered certain of the letter sounds and can write them and read them. But you can just start wherever it makes sense for you. And if you have multiple children, you can use it for all of them. So even if they're at different levels. So I would recommend that. I think if you buy it on their website, it's between $21 and $25. And then they have like the supporting materials, like flashcards. You can get it on Amazon less expensively, but I'm guessing that the benefit of buying it through welltrainedmind.com, which is her website, is support. I guess you can get onto their forums. I think you could anyway, and get some support there. I'm trying to think. So anyway, I recommend that, and I ended up using that for the 3 younger kids. And visually, I have to tell you that I preferred that over the Alphaphonics. And if you look up Alphaphonics and the Ordinary Parent's Guide, you can see what I mean by the hand lettering of the Alphaphonics. I'm sorry I am acting this way about it, but I'm just surprised that 30 years later, 20 years after I used it, that it's still published that way. But hey, good for them. Then I remember, just as something new to do, something that was interactive that the kids could do together, they used a thing called, on the computer, let me see if I wrote it down. Oh, it was called Study Dog. And it was just little games that the letters would come together. I don't really even remember. And again, it was like more of a reinforcement tool, something that was semi-constructive if I had to work with one of the other kids, or had to get lunch finished, or something like that. And there are online programs. If you're finding, for any reason, that just sitting and physically opening a book or working one-on-one doesn't work for you, you can Google, the best online programs to teach reading, and just try them out. But that's a personal decision. So then I wanted to tell you the other thing that I used alongside. I remember using it's a publication called Explode the Code, and again, it's like a progressive phonics based program, but it was more worksheet type, and that for some of my kids not only reinforced the ideas and what they were learning in either of the reading programs, but it also gave them a sense of accomplishment. So it's a practice handwriting, practice reading, practice decoding, and it's fairly gentle. But it can, and again, they can progress as quickly or as slowly as it makes sense for any of them. But they actually like those books, so we use that. And then for easy reading, we had a few Dr. Seuss books that the kids had since they were probably born. So those are good reinforcements with the letter sounds. And we did use Bob books. I kind of remember my youngest, for some reason, Bob books, if you're not familiar with them, they're an easy find on Amazon. And I can leave all the links to these things after I'm done today. But Bob books are, again, just, there's a lot of white space, very simple pictures so as not to distract, in my view, and then simple sentences that reinforce the phonics sounds. So from that perspective, I would encourage you to check out welltrainedmind.com, and you can read about the Ordinary Guide to Teaching Reading. I think on Amazon, if you go on the Amazon listing for it, you can actually look inside, and there's an introduction by Jessie Wise, who is Susan Weisbauer's mom, who was kind of a pioneer. Well, she was a pioneer in homeschooling. She homeschooled her kids. Well, Susan Weisbauer is probably 50 now, so it wasn't that popular back then. But so it kind of explains her philosophy and how she approaches the topic of teaching reading. And I think you'll be surprised by how natural it is. Even though this gives you a script, you'll kind of fall into the routine of it as the lessons progress. But the other nice thing about checking out, and it probably, I didn't look at the reviews on Amazon, but going onto the website, it's nice to see the feedback from people who have purchased the program. They ask questions, some of them, and yeah, just to get a feel for the kind of students that are using it, and some of the feedback on the program. And I view all of Susan Weisbauer's materials as excellent, very well thought out. This is the way she educated her own children, the foundation of which is how she was home educated. So she's just an impressive creator, I would say. Yeah, so hopefully that is helpful. I don't know if anybody has any questions. If you're struggling with particular issues, I think if you leave a question, put a question in the comments, it's not visible to everybody else, just me. It has something probably to do with my settings. I think it does. So if you have any questions about this topic, there's a question. We currently live in Virginia, but we are military and will be returning to PA in about 3 years. We are going to be using MFW. Ooh, I don't know what that is. or I don't remember what this coming school year for kindergarten, our first year. What do I need to keep for documentation for when we return to PA? Nothing. So thank you for your service, or your spouse's service. Yeah, PA, oh, my father's world, thank you. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've had to deal with any sort of curriculum stuff. My father's word, I think, right? No, you don't have, like, Pennsylvania doesn't care what you did before you got here. Because when you file an affidavit in Pennsylvania, you just tell the school district, and it's a year-to-year thing, you tell the school district, yep, I'm under your jurisdiction now because I live in your district. My child is, however old your child is, that you're going to follow the homeschool laws, and all the affidavit stuff is on my website. You can get a form, a sample form for an affidavit, but nope, there's no proof that you have complied with any sort of standard, or have homeschooled up to this point, or successfully educated up to this point. Now, if you were going to enroll your child in a school district, I still don't think that they care what you did before this. You might just have to be subject to like a placement test so that they are properly placed in a reading group or a math group or something like that. But no, there's no proof that you need. Like, for now, you're under Virginia's jurisdiction. Follow their homeschool laws. Once you get to PA, it's just like, hey, this is us, just file what you need to file in Pennsylvania, and it's like none of their business what you did before. Your evaluator at the end of the year will just take a look at whether the standard is an appropriate education has occurred, and that's defined in the law too. So hopefully that helps. Yeah, I'm curious about what resources. The other good resource is just local Facebook groups. So, or the Pennsylvania Homeschool Support Group. Shelby's question: do they evaluate each child at the end of the year? They, not the school district. You choose an evaluator, and for any child who's over the compulsory education age, which is now 6, so probably all children, by that point, your evaluator will, you have to get an evaluation every year for each of the kids. It's low key, it's not super demanding, and I have other videos I would encourage you, when you get to that point, don't do it now. If you're not going to be in Pennsylvania into 3 years from now, I wouldn't over-concern myself with the details of our law. I don't think they'll change, but and just to let you know, it's way less imposing than it seems. I know we're considered a high compliance state, a lot of hoops to jump through, but they're not hard to jump through. So, sorry, I interrupted myself with your question. So, if you are a part of the Pennsylvania Homeschool Support Group, that's also a good place to just ask the question, hey, what do you use to teach reading? And then just kind of research that for yourself. At the top of this little video, I was talking about advantages that you have over a teacher in a classroom setting. And another advantage is that if something, you can choose something that you know fits your family situation and your family dynamic, the number of kids that you have. if you know that you can't dedicate, say, 45 minutes every single day because of the age of your children. Maybe you have, like, your oldest is 5 and you have 3 more, which that was my case. If you know that you don't have 40 minutes a day and are not going to be able to sit down and have that time, then you can choose something else. You might want to go with something online based if that just gets you through the year and you see progress. And then overall, I think the most important thing to keep in mind and to be committed to for any kid, no matter if they're reading or reading at a high level, is just reading together as a family, reading out loud to them. Even when they learn to read themselves, I think it's so important to read good books together. It is just integral to just appreciating story, wanting to learn how to read themselves. So that, I would say, is the highest priority. If you can't do anything else, if you can't implement a program, 100% make a commitment to read out loud to them. And I posted a link to a podcast a couple of weeks back, so you could scroll down and find that. But it just makes a case for reading aloud, even to very proficient readers, for a lot of reasons. And they were talking specifically about teenagers, and the guest was Andrew Pudewa, who, I don't know if any of you went to the free conference that I posted about, but he just said his main argument is that experience with language and experience with words is as important as learning how to decode words. So he really advocates reading stories, reading works of literature, reading books aloud to even older readers that are a little bit above their reading level. And it's just a really good talk and a good interview. So I would encourage you to sort of approach it that way as well, and to make it a priority to read aloud and enjoy it, because there are some really wonderful, wonderful stories. And I have said before that some of our favorite memories and the kids' connection to each other are through those times and through those common stories. And even today, if I mention a book that we read, they light up. They literally light up, or they'll remember how we read it. So anyway, that's my little plug for reading aloud. Here's another question. Oh, I can't see your video because I don't have Facebook app on my phone. Are you announcing any changes for the school year? No, I'm not announcing any changes that I know. None so far, but I will. This talk is just about resources for teaching your children to read, your new readers to read. But as soon as I hear anything, if I hear anything that anything has changed, like the time requirement, which due to COVID was changed last year, and no evaluations last year, but so far for the year ending 2021, evaluations or the requirement is still in place. So far I haven't heard any changes. Here's another question. Okay. Sorry, my throat's all dry, but we are moving to Pennsylvania from Ohio the first week of February. My son is 4 years old and he's doing grade 1 curriculum. He doesn't fall under the compulsory education age in Pennsylvania. Don't worry about him. Don't file anything for him. Here in Ohio, I don't need to notify the state until he is 6. Same in Pennsylvania. I have read is the same in Pennsylvania. Yes. Since he is already doing a first grade level curriculum, do you recommend me to notify the state of Pennsylvania this year? No. Or wait until he is 6 years old. He is turning 5 on March. Wait till he's 6. Yeah. That's for sure. Doesn't matter what grade. If he's doing higher grade level when he turns 6, on your affidavit, it's just the child's name and their age. So it's completely discretionary what grade level he's reading on. I mean, yeah, you're welcome. And even let me talk about, a lot of people say, well, does that mean, let's say your child is reading at a 3rd grade level when they're in 1st grade and is doing 3rd grade math, maybe that's kind of subjective, I guess, when they're in 1st grade. So some people would say, well, does that mean I have to give them a 3rd grade, that I would be required, that they would be considered in 3rd grade for testing purposes? Because in Pennsylvania, in the portfolio that you show the evaluator, you have to include, and I talked about this last week, you have to include results of standardized tests in 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade. So in the situation we're talking about where you have an advanced reader or a child who maybe is doing advanced work, doesn't mean they're in 3rd grade. And in that situation, I would file when they turn 6, do whatever level work they're on, but I wouldn't include a test, results from a test, until they would have been considered in 3rd grade. So that would be, probably in 2 years when he is more like 8 or going on 9. So sorry to confuse that issue, but and that doesn't mean, oh, well, what if he's so advanced that he's ready to graduate at 15? It doesn't affect anything down the road. I just would, when he probably would be in 3rd grade, he or she would be in 3rd grade, that's when you should include results of standardized tests in the portfolio. But again, off topic a little bit, so sorry for that. But hopefully that answered your question. And yeah, so if somebody wants to mention something that they're using, that they're liking, and I know you guys, I don't think you can see each other's comments, but I'm happy to say it out loud if you've had some positive response to it. So the other thing is, I want to encourage you not to get super stressed out about whether it's not clicking with your child. If I just think kids develop at such different ages. I don't agree with the idea that is like just rampant, that kindergartners need to be able to read by the end of kindergarten or even 1st grade. I mean, I just don't agree with that. And then if you have valid concerns about learning disabilities, I think the other nice thing about being able to have your kids at home is that I think that would come up in other ways, that you would notice deficiencies in either processing or developmentally in other ways, not just reading. So yeah, hopefully. I'm just hoping to ease your concerns about teaching, and it's not necessarily natural, this skill, like to know how to teach a person to do a thing, but you'll get it. It'll become more natural. So hopefully that helps. Another thing that we incorporated, and I wouldn't have known to do this, but allow them to just write or encourage them. Ooh, Amber Alert. Yikes. Yeah, encourage them to write that will come naturally. So again, I'm comparing my kids just to give you an idea of the scope of it. My daughter was inclined to, write her own stories, caption the pictures she was drawing. We were looking at something last night or a couple of nights ago where she drew this picture, and I think she was mad at me. And she captioned it, but she only used the first letter of every word, and I was happy that on the back I wrote the date that she drew that picture and what the word said, but it was just the first letter, and that's just it's just a natural thing that her younger brother sometimes did. He would try to copy when she was writing something out. So yeah, and I didn't correct him at that age. Like I just think I just kind of let them do it. And the other cool thing that you can do is something called narration. And if you've done any reading about approaches to learning and education, narration is very simply that if you're reading something out loud, you can say, "Oh, can you tell me about that?" And tell me about that in your own words. And they sort of retell the story. Or you can do it a page at a time or a paragraph at a time. Or if they say, or even if they're telling you about their day, that's a form of narration, and it is a very high level of processing and thinking, connecting the verbal and the visual. So that is something that I think you'll find that makes learning to read easier. So anyway, okay, well, I think that's all I have. I will leave links to make it easy, especially if you weren't here for the first part of this. I'll leave links. Once this video publishes, I'll leave a couple links to the sites that I mentioned or to the resources I mentioned. And I will also upload this to YouTube, and then I'll post that link. It's a little cumbersome, but just as some people have asked me to publish to YouTube because they have friends who aren't on Facebook. So you can look for those links, and I hope this helped you. All right, have a good week, and I'll see you next time. I will look for, I think, I'll check out the other topics that people were interested in, but yeah, I'll see you next time.